Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair on the bridge of the Galactic Survey Vessel Horizon. The stars outside looked peaceful through the main window. He had been drinking his morning coffee when the emergency alert started beeping. The sound made everyone on the bridge look up from their work. "Captain, we have an urgent message from command," said Communications Officer Lisa Grant. Her voice sounded worried. She pressed some buttons on her control panel. "It's marked as highest priority." Jake put down his coffee cup. In his 20 years of service, he had only seen a few highest priority messages. They usually meant trouble. Big trouble. "Put it on the main screen," he said. Admiral Chun's face appeared on the large screen in front of them. The Admiral looked tired, like she had not slept in days. Behind her, Jake could see other officers running around with worried looks on their faces. "Captain Morrison," the Admiral began, "we need you to investigate something strange. 3 days ago, our long-range sensors found something impossible on planet Kepler 442c. Jake knew that name. Every space officer did. Kepler 442c was famous for being one of the most dangerous planets ever found. Scientists had labeled it a Class 15 Deathworld. That was the highest danger rating they had ever given to any planet. "What kind of impossible, Admiral?" Jake asked. "The kind that might change everything we know about life in the galaxy," she replied. "Dr. Hayes, your science officer, will want to hear this. The planet is showing signs of intelligent life." Dr. Peter Hayes, who had been checking some readings at his station, dropped his datapad. It clattered on the metal floor. "That's not possible," he said, walking over to stand next to Jake's chair. "Nothing can live on a Class 15 world. The radiation alone would kill any known life form in minutes." The Admiral nodded. "That's what we thought too. But our deep space monitoring station picked up radio signals coming from the planet's surface. Not just random noise, organized transmissions, mathematical patterns, even what sounds like music and entertainment programs." Lisa Grant checked her own equipment. "Admiral, are you sure the signals are coming from the planet? Maybe it's a ship in orbit or some kind of relay station." "We triple-checked everything," the Admiral said. "The signals are definitely coming from the surface. And they've been broadcasting for at least several months, maybe longer. We only noticed them now because we finally got a monitoring station close enough to that sector." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. He had seen many strange things in space, but this was different. Kepler 442c was not just dangerous. It was a nightmare world that made other dangerous planets look like vacation spots. "Tell us about the planet's current condition," Jake said. The Admiral's expression got even more serious. "That's the really scary part. Right now, Kepler 442c is experiencing what our computers classify as an extinction-level event. A supervolcano erupted 2 days ago. It should be killing everything on half the continent, but the radio signals never stopped. If anything, they've gotten stronger." Dr. Hayes shook his head in disbelief. "Admiral, I've studied every known form of life in the galaxy. Nothing survives Class 15 conditions. The gravity is twice normal. The temperature swings from freezing to boiling in hours. The storms have winds over 400 kilometers per hour. The radiation levels would cook most species in their first day there. And yet," the Admiral said, "something is not just surviving. Down there, it's thriving. Captain Morrison, I'm giving you new orders. Take your ship to Kepler 442c. Find out what's living on that planet, and find out if it poses a threat to galactic security." Jake understood what the Admiral was really saying. If something could survive on the galaxy's most dangerous planet, it might be dangerous to everyone else. The Galactic Council had rules about this kind of situation. They had to investigate immediately. "How long do we have?" Jake asked. "You leave in 6 hours." This is classified at the highest level. Only your senior staff can know the real reason for this mission. As far as everyone else knows, you're doing a routine survey of the outer rim. The Admiral's image disappeared from the screen. Jake sat back in his chair and looked around at his senior officers. Lisa Grant looked excited but nervous. Dr. Hayes was already pulling up every file they had about Kepler 442c on his datapad. Security Chief Amanda Cole had appeared on the bridge during the conversation and was checking her weapon systems. "Well, people," Jake said, "looks like we're going to make first contact with something that shouldn't exist." Dr. Hayes looked up from his reading. "Captain, according to these files, the last probe we sent to Kepler 442c lasted exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds before the planet destroyed it. The one before that lasted 2 minutes. How are we supposed to land on a world like that?" "Very carefully," Jake replied. "Amanda, I want you to prepare a first contact team. Take Hayes for scientific analysis, Grant for communications and engineer, Tony Rodriguez for technical support. Plan for a short surface mission. We go down, make contact, gather information, and get out fast." Amanda nodded. "What kind of resistance should we expect?" "Unknown," Jake said. "But remember, whatever is, down there survived everything that planet could throw at it. That makes it either very tough or very smart. Maybe both." Lisa Grant was monitoring the radio. Signals from Kepler 442c. She put on her headphones and listened for a few minutes. When she took them off, her face was pale. "Captain," she said quietly, "I'm picking up new transmissions from the planet. They're in a pattern I've never heard before. But there's something else. In the background of one transmission, I heard something that sounded like children laughing." The bridge went silent. Everyone stared at Lisa. "Children?" Dr. Hayes whispered. "What kind of species would bring children to a Class 15 Deathworld?" Jake stood up from his command chair. "The kind we're about to meet. Set course for Kepler 442c. Maximum speed." As the horizon turned toward their destination, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to discover something that would change the galaxy forever. Something that lived where nothing should be able to live. Something that laughed in the face of extinction itself. The landing shuttle shook violently as it entered Kepler 442c's atmosphere. Tony Rodriguez gripped his control panel with both hands, trying to keep the small ship steady. Sweat dripped down his face inside his helmet, even though the environmental suit was supposed to keep him cool. "Heat shields at 200% capacity," Tony shouted over the noise of the rattling hull. "That's not supposed to be possible." Through the front window, they could see the planet's surface getting closer. It looked like a vision of hell. Massive storms covered half the continent, with lightning bolts so bright they hurt to look at. Active volcanoes shot lava high into the air. The ground itself seemed to glow with heat. "Atmospheric readings are off the charts," Dr. Hayes said, checking his instruments. "The air down there would melt most metals. How is anything living in this?" Security Chief Amanda Cole was strapped into her seat, checking her weapons for the third time. "Maybe it's not living. Maybe it's some kind of machine intelligence." "No," Lisa Grant said, listening to her communication equipment. "I'm still picking up those transmissions. There's definitely something biological down there. I can hear breathing in the background of some signals." The shuttle hit another blast of superheated air and dropped suddenly. Everyone's stomach jumped into their throat. Tony fought with the controls, trying to find a safe place to land. "There," he said, pointing to a valley between two smaller volcanoes. "That area looks more stable." "More stable is relative on this planet," Amanda muttered. They came down hard, harder than Tony had planned. The shuttle bounced twice before settling on the rocky ground. Steam rose from the landing pads, where they touched the superheated earth. Outside the windows, they could see a landscape that looked like the end of the world. The trees, if they could be called trees, were black and twisted. Their branches moved even though there was no wind. As the team watched, one of the trees suddenly whipped a branch toward a small animal that had gotten too close. The animal disappeared in a cloud of green smoke. "The plants are hunting," Dr. Hayes whispered. "That's impossible. Plants don't have nervous systems complex enough for hunting behavior." "Everything about this place is impossible," Jake said through their communication system from the ship above. "But you're down there anyway. What's your plan?" Amanda checked her scanner. "I'm reading a large heat source about 12 kilometers north of here. It's too big to be natural. Something built it." "That matches the strongest radio signals," Lisa added. "Whatever is sending those transmissions is probably there." They put on their environmental suits and opened the shuttle door. The heat hit them immediately, even through their protective gear. The air shimmered with thermal waves. In the distance, they could hear sounds that no natural world should make. Howling that seemed to come from the rocks themselves. Crackling noises that might have been lightning, or might have been something else entirely. Dr. Hayes took readings with his portable scanner as they walked. The radiation levels here would kill an unprotected human in less than an hour. The gravity is 1.8 times normal. The atmospheric pressure is crushing. And yet I'm detecting clear signs of a complex ecosystem. As they moved through the alien forest, they began to see more impossible things. Flowers that exploded when small animals got near them, spraying acid in all directions. Vines that seemed to communicate with each other, passing along information about the team's movement. Insects the size of small cars that flew overhead in organized formations. "We're being watched," Amanda said, her hand on her weapon. "Something is tracking us through the tree canopy." They looked up, but could see nothing in the twisted branches above. Still, they all felt the sensation of eyes on them. Something intelligent was studying their every move. After an hour of walking through the nightmare landscape, Lisa suddenly stopped. "Wait," she said. "I'm hearing something new on the communication bands. It's close, very close." She adjusted her equipment and pointed to a group of trees ahead of them. "The signal is coming from right there." They approached carefully, weapons ready. Amanda used her scanner to check for life signs. What she found made her gasp. There's definitely something there, bipedal, about the size of a human child. And it's not wearing any kind of environmental protection. "That's impossible," Dr. Hayes said. "Nothing can survive in this atmosphere without protection." They pushed through a group of the twisted trees and found themselves in a small clearing. Sitting on a rock in the center was the source of the radio signal. It was indeed a human child, a boy who looked about 10 years old. He was wearing simple clothes and no environmental gear at all. His skin looked normal, maybe a little darker than usual, but definitely human. Next to him stood the most incredible thing any of them had ever seen. It was one of the flying creatures they had spotted during their descent, but this one was clearly tame. It looked like a cross between a bird and a reptile, with wings that sparkled in the harsh sunlight. The child was feeding it something from his hand. "Hello," the boy said in perfect English. His voice came through clearly on their radio system. "My mom said you would probably crash land in this valley. She sent me to make sure you didn't get eaten by the acid flowers." The 4 team members stared at him in shock. Dr. Hayes was the first to find his voice. "How are you alive?" he asked. "This atmosphere should be toxic to humans." The boy smiled. "Toxic? This is just Tuesday weather. Wait until you see what it's like when we have a real storm." As if on cue, the ground shook beneath their feet. In the distance, another volcano erupted, sending a column of lava high into the air. The boy didn't even look concerned. "We should go," he said, climbing onto the back of his flying mount. "The acid rain will start soon, and you don't have proper protection." "Proper protection?" Amanda asked, looking at her heavy environmental suit. "That gear might keep you alive for a few hours," the boy said, "but it won't help when the really dangerous stuff starts. Come on, I'll take you to the settlement. Mom wants to meet you." He urged his mount into the air, and it began flying slowly toward the north. The team had no choice but to follow on foot, walking beneath the impossible sight of a human child, riding a domesticated monster through the atmosphere of a world that should have killed them all. "How is this possible?" Dr. Hayes kept asking. As they walked, "How is any of this possible?" Behind them, the shuttle's hull began to smoke from the acid rain that was starting to fall. The boy had been right. Their advanced technology was no match for this world's everyday weather. But somehow, a 10-year-old human child was flying through it like it was a pleasant summer day dot as they walked through the hellish landscape, following their impossible guide. Each team member began to realize that everything they thought they knew about the limits of human survival was about to change. The settlement appeared like a miracle carved into the side of an active volcano. As the team climbed the rocky path, following the boy on his flying mount, they could hardly believe what they were seeing. Instead of hiding from the planet's dangers, the humans here had built their home right in the middle of them. Lava flows had been guided into channels that ran through the settlement like glowing rivers. The molten rock powered everything from lighting to heating systems. Gardens grew in soil that should have been too hot to touch. Children played in courtyards where steam vents provided what looked like natural hot springs. "Welcome to Haven," the boy called down from his mount. Population 847 humans and about 3,000 of our animal partners. At the settlement's entrance, a woman waited for them. She looked to be in her 40s, with skin that had a slight golden tint and eyes that seemed to reflect light like a cat's. She wore simple clothes that looked handmade, and like the boy, she had no environmental protection at all. "I'm Mayor Beth Carter," she said, extending her hand to shake theirs. "And you must be the Galactic Survey Team. We've been monitoring your ship since you entered our solar system." Dr. Hayes stared at her outstretched hand. Through his environmental suit's sensors, he could see that the air around her was hot enough to cook meat. Yet she stood there comfortably, as if she were on a pleasant beach somewhere. "How are you alive?" he asked again, the question that had been bothering him since they met the boy. Beth smiled. "Same way you're alive. We breathe, we eat, we sleep. We laugh, we cry. We're human, just like you. We've just learned to adapt to our home." She led them through the settlement, and with each step, the team saw more impossible things. A blacksmith working with molten metal using his bare hands. Children swimming in a pool that their instruments said was hot enough to boil water. An old man tending a garden where the plants glowed with their own inner light. "Your ancestors," Amanda said carefully. "How did they get here?" "The colony ship New Horizons," Beth replied. "Engine failure forced an emergency landing about 200 years ago. Most of the 10,000 colonists didn't survive the first month. This planet doesn't give second chances to the weak or unprepared." They passed a group of teenagers who were practicing what looked like martial arts. But instead of fighting each other, they were sparring with the planet itself. One girl was dodging streams of acid that shot from a trained plant. A boy was lifting rocks that weighed more than the team's entire shuttle. The survivors, Beth continued, realized they had two choices: die as normal humans or become something new, something that could not just live on Kepler 442c, but thrive. Here, Lisa Grant watched a small child, maybe 5 years old, casually pet what looked like a miniature dragon. The creature was breathing small puffs of flame, and the child was giggling as the fire warmed his hands. "How did you change yourselves?" she asked. "Carefully," Beth said, "and over many generations. We used genetic therapy, selective breeding, cybernetic enhancements, and most importantly, we let the planet teach us what we needed to become." They reached the center of the settlement, where a large building sat directly over a lava vent. Inside, they could see people working with technology that looked both advanced and primitive at the same time. Computers that seemed to be grown rather than built. Vehicles that moved like living creatures. "Our technology," Beth explained, "isn't designed to fight against nature. It's designed to work with it. We don't try to make the planet safe for us. We made ourselves safe for the planet." Dr. Hayes was taking readings with every instrument he had. "Your DNA is still human," he said, sounding confused. "But there are modifications I've never seen before. Radiation resistance, temperature adaptation, enhanced strength and reflexes. This should have taken millions of years of evolution." "It took us 200 years, Beth said proudly. "When your survival depends on adapting quickly, you find ways to speed up the process." A loud roar echoed across the settlement. The team looked up to see something the size of a small aircraft flying overhead. It had wings like a bat, claws like an eagle, and breathed fire like a dragon from ancient stories. "Storm Drake," Beth said casually. "We have about 50 of them. They're excellent for transportation and defense." "Defense against what?" Amanda asked, her hand moving to her weapon. "Oh, the usual," Beth replied. "Acid storms, earthquake swarms, volcanic eruptions, the occasional visit from the crystal wolves. You know, Tuesday stuff." They were interrupted by a young man who came running up to Beth. He looked to be in his 20s, with the same golden-tinted skin and enhanced eyes as the mayor. "Mom," he said, "the council wants to meet with our visitors. Elder Bishop is calling an emergency session." Beth nodded. "This is my son, Danny," she told the team. "Danny, these are the people from the galactic civilization we've been hearing about on the long-range communications." Danny studied them with interest. "You're a lot more fragile than we expected," he said honestly. "Those environmental suits must be really uncomfortable." "They're keeping us alive," Dr. Hayes pointed out. "Are they?" Danny asked. "Or are they keeping you from truly living?" Before anyone could answer that question, Danny picked up a boulder from the side of the path. It was easily 5 times his body weight, made of solid volcanic rock. He lifted it over his head with no apparent effort, carried it about 20 meters, and set it down gently in a garden bed. "Sorry," he said to the shocked team members. "Mom asked me to move that before the afternoon seismic shift. We're expecting a 6.8 earthquake around dinner time." "A 6.8 earthquake?" Tony Rodriguez stammered. "That would destroy most cities." "Not here," Beth said. "Our buildings are designed to dance with the planet's movements. We've learned that rigid structures break, but flexible ones survive." As they walked toward the council building, the team passed a school where children were learning lessons that would be impossible anywhere else in the galaxy. A teacher was showing students how to predict volcanic eruptions by listening to the planet's underground sounds. Another class was learning to navigate by reading the patterns of electrical storms. "Education here is a bit different," Beth explained. "We don't just teach facts and figures. We teach survival, adaptation, and harmony with forces that most species consider hostile." They reached the council building just as the ground shook with the predicted earthquake. The building swayed and moved like a tree in the wind, but nothing broke. The people inside didn't even stop their conversations. 6.7, Danny said, checking a device on his wrist. Close enough to Mom's prediction. As they entered the building to meet the council, Dr. Hayes realized that everything he thought he knew about the limits of human potential was wrong. These people hadn't just survived the impossible. They had made the impossible look easy. and now the team would have to explain to the galaxy that humans were capable of far more than anyone had ever imagined. The council chamber was carved directly into the volcanic rock, with windows that looked out over the lava flows. 7 people sat around a circular table made from a single piece of crystal that seemed to glow with its own inner light. At the head of the table sat Elder Frank Bishop, a man who looked to be in his 70s, but moved with the grace of someone much younger. "Welcome to Haven," Elder Bishop said as the team entered. "We've been watching your ship for 3 days. We've also been listening to your communications with your home base." Amanda tensed. "You've been monitoring our transmissions?" "Of course," said Council Member Sarah Kim, a woman with silver hair and arms that showed cybernetic enhancements. "We've been monitoring all galactic communications for decades. We know about your civilization, your safe worlds, your comfortable lives, your fear of anything that might be dangerous." Dr. Hayes set down his scanning equipment. "With respect, we've built a peaceful society across thousands of worlds. We've eliminated hunger, disease, and war on most planets. We call that progress." Elder Bishop smiled sadly. "You call it progress. We call it weakness." The blunt statement hung in the air like a challenge. Lisa Grant shifted uncomfortably in her environmental suit. "What do you mean by weakness?" Council Member Jack Torres, a younger man with scars across his face that looked like they came from acid burns, answered her. "You've eliminated all the challenges that make humans grow stronger. You've made life so safe that you've forgotten what it means to truly live." "We've eliminated suffering," Tony Rodriguez protested. "Exactly," said Council Member Maria Santos, a woman whose eyes had been replaced with cybernetic implants that glowed softly in the dim light. "And in doing so, you've eliminated growth. Challenge creates strength. Struggle creates wisdom. Danger creates heroes." Elder Bishop stood up and walked to one of the windows. Outside, they could see children playing in a courtyard where geysers of superheated gas shot up from the ground every few minutes. The children had turned it into a game, timing their movements to avoid the deadly steam. "We know about your galactic civilization," Bishop said. "We know about your classification. System for worlds. Class 1 through Class 15, with 15 being considered impossible for life. You've built your society around avoiding anything above Class 5, because it's sensible," Amanda said. "Why risk lives unnecessarily? Because risk is what makes life worth living," replied Council Member David Chun, a man who looked to be in his 40s, but had the muscular build of someone who did physical labor every day. "Because challenge is what separates the living from the merely existing." Bishop returned to his seat. "We've been isolated here for 200 years by choice, not by accident. We've watched your civilization grow larger and softer with each passing decade. We've seen your people become dependent on technology for everything from thinking to breathing." "Our technology saves lives," Dr. Hayes argued. "Does it?" asked Council Member Linda Park, an older woman whose skin showed the silver traces of genetic modification. "Or does it prevent you from becoming strong enough to save yourselves?" The elder leaned forward. "We propose a test. If you want to establish formal contact between our settlement and your galactic civilization, you must prove that you understand what survival really means." "What kind of test?" Amanda asked, though her voice suggested she already suspected the answer. "Survive on Kepler 442c for 24 hours without your technological assistance," Bishop said simply. "No environmental suits, no powered equipment, no external life support, just human courage and intelligence against a world that wants to kill you." The team members looked at each other in shock. Through their suit radios, they could hear Captain Morrison's voice from orbit. "Absolutely not." Jake's voice crackled through the communication system. "That's a death sentence." Council Member Torres shook his head. Death is a possibility, but so is discovery. So is growth. So is becoming more than you thought possible. You're asking us to commit suicide, Tony said. We're asking you to commit. To life, Maria Santos replied. Real life, not the artificial existence your civilization has created. Dr. Hayes was already calculating survival odds in his head. The radiation exposure alone would kill us within hours. The atmospheric pressure would crush our lungs. The temperature variations would cook us and freeze us in the same day. Yes, Bishop said calmly. Those are the challenges you would face. The same challenges our children face every day of their lives. Lisa Grant surprised everyone by speaking up. I'll do it. The entire room went silent. Even the council members looked surprised. Lisa, no, Amanda said. You have no idea what you're agreeing to. Yes, I do, Lisa replied. I've been listening to their communications for days. I've heard their children laughing while playing in conditions that should kill them instantly. If human children can adapt to this world, then human adults should be able to survive it for one day. Elder Bishop studied her carefully. You understand that we will not help you during the test. We will observe, we will record, but we will not interfere. If you fail, you die. I understand, Lisa said, but I also understand something else. If we go back to the galaxy and tell them about you, they'll either want to study you like laboratory animals, or they'll see you as a threat to be eliminated. This test isn't just about proving we can survive here. It's about proving we're worthy of learning from you. Dr. Hayes realized she was right. The galactic civilization's response to the impossible humans of Kepler 442c would depend entirely on how they were first presented, as weak visitors who needed protection, or as potential students who could handle the truth. If we agree to this test, Amanda said slowly, what do we get in return? Council member Kim smiled for the first time since they had arrived. Knowledge. Real knowledge about what humans can become when they stop accepting limitations. And if we refuse? Tony asked. Then you leave, Bishop said simply. And we continue our isolation until the galaxy produces humans worthy of joining us. The team requested a private conference. They moved to a corner of the chamber and spoke in whispers, knowing that their hosts could probably hear every word anyway. This is insane, Tony said. We'll be dead in 6 hours. Maybe, Amanda replied. But Lisa's right about one thing. If we don't prove ourselves here, this contact will go very badly when we report back. Dr. Hayes was looking at his instruments, studying the readings from the settlement. There's something else, he said quietly. Look at these biological scans. These people aren't just adapted to this environment. They're thriving in it. Their stress levels are lower than normal human baseline. Their immune systems are stronger. Their reflexes are faster. They're not just surviving impossible conditions. They're using those conditions to become better than normal humans. You think we can actually do this? Amanda asked. I think we have to try, Dr. Hayes replied. Because if we don't, we'll spend the rest of our lives wondering what we might have learned here. They returned to the council table. Lisa Grant spoke for all of them. We accept your test, she said. All 4 of us. 24 hours, no technological assistance, starting at sunrise tomorrow. Elder Bishop nodded approvingly. Then tonight, you will be our guests. Eat with us, sleep in our homes, and prepare yourselves for the most important day of your lives. As they left the council chamber, Danny Carter appeared at their side. Don't worry, he said cheerfully. The first day is always the hardest. After that, you start to understand that the planet isn't trying to kill you. It's trying to teach you. Teach us what? Dr. Hayes asked. Danny's answer would stay with them through the long night ahead. How to be truly alive. Dawn came like a hammer blow of heat and light. The 4 team members stood at the edge of the settlement, wearing only the simple clothes the colonists had given them. Their environmental suits lay in a pile behind them, looking like the discarded shells of their former selves. The first sensation was the air itself. It burned going into their lungs, tasted of sulfur and metal, and felt thick enough to chew. Dr. Hayes fought the urge to hold his breath, forcing himself to take small, careful breaths, as Beth Carter had taught them the night before. Remember, Elder Bishop said from behind him, this is not about fighting the planet. It's about learning to dance with it. The test officially began when the sun cleared the volcanic peaks to the east. Immediately, the team faced their first challenge. The ground beneath their feet began to warm rapidly as the solar radiation hit it. Within minutes, it would be hot enough to burn through normal shoes. Lisa Grant watched how the settlement's children handled this. They wore shoes made from the hide of local animals, specially treated to resist heat. But they also moved differently, never standing in one place too long, always keeping their feet moving. It's like a dance, she said to herself, and began copying their movements. Tony Rodriguez discovered that the planet's frequent seismic activity wasn't random. There was a pattern to it, a rhythm that the colonists had learned to read. When he stopped fighting the ground's movement and started moving with it, walking became easier. The second hour brought acid rain. It fell without warning, hissing as it hit the ground around them. Amanda Cole watched in amazement as the colonist children simply opened umbrellas made from some kind of treated plant material and continued playing. She and her team took shelter under a rock overhang, but she made mental notes about how the locals handled the danger. By the fourth hour, they encountered their first predator. A pack of crystalline wolves emerged from between the volcanic rocks, their bodies glowing with internal heat. These were the creatures that had nearly killed probe teams from other planets, but Dr. Hayes noticed something important. The wolves weren't attacking randomly. They were testing, looking for weakness. Don't run, he called to his team. Stand your ground, but don't threaten them. The strategy worked. After a tense 5-minute standoff, the wolves moved on to easier prey. Dr. Hayes realized that the planet's predators had evolved alongside the human colonists. They had learned that these particular humans were not easy targets. The real breakthrough came in the 8th hour, when they encountered a grove of the explosive plants they had seen on their first day. These plants detonated when anything came. Too close, spraying acid in all directions. It seemed impossible to get past them, but Amanda Cole watched how the acid fell, studying the pattern. The plants didn't explode randomly. They had a specific trigger mechanism, and their acid spray followed predictable paths. After 20 minutes of observation, she was able to lead her team through the grove without triggering a single explosion. "You're learning," called Danny Carter from somewhere nearby. True to the Council's word, the colonists were observing, but not helping. Yet their presence was oddly comforting. By noon, the team was adapting in ways that surprised them. Tony Rodriguez found he could predict seismic tremors by feeling vibrations through his feet. The planet's constant small earthquakes had taught him to read the ground like a book. Lisa Grant discovered that the electrical storms followed patterns based on the volcanic activity. By watching the lava flows, she could predict where lightning would strike next. This allowed her to guide the team safely through a region where the air itself crackled with dangerous energy. The most dramatic change came to Dr. Hayes. His entire worldview, built around understanding and controlling nature, began to shift. Instead of seeing Kepler 442c as a hostile environment to be conquered, he started to see it as a teacher. Every challenge the planet presented was also a lesson in survival. When they encountered a region where the air was too hot to breathe. Normally, Hayes remembered watching the colonists' children. They didn't try to cool the air. They changed how they breathed, taking shorter, more frequent breaths through their noses. which naturally cooled the air before it reached their lungs. Afternoon brought their greatest test. A sudden volcanic eruption created a pyroclastic flow heading directly toward them. This wall of superheated gas and rock should have been instantly fatal, but Amanda Cole noticed something. The colonists' children didn't run from such events. They used them. Following her instincts, she led the team not away from the flow, but toward a specific type of rock formation she had seen the colonists use for shelter. These caves were positioned to channel the deadly flow overhead, while creating a pocket of relatively cool air below. They huddled in the cave for an hour while the pyroclastic flow passed overhead. When they emerged, they found the landscape had been completely reshaped. New hills had formed, old valleys had been filled in, and the entire geography had changed. The planet rebuilds itself every few months, Danny Carter explained, appearing from another shelter cave. We don't try to make permanent maps. We learn to read the signs and adapt to whatever comes next. As the sun began to set, marking 18 hours of survival, something remarkable happened. The team stopped thinking about survival and started thinking about living. They began to understand what the colonists meant about dancing with the planet instead of fighting it. Dr. Hayes found himself studying the way plants grew in the volcanic soil, not as a scientist trying to classify them, but as a student trying to learn their secrets. Tony Rodriguez was reading the rhythm of the ground tremors like music, predicting the planet's next movements. Lisa Grant was listening to the electrical storms as if they were speaking to her in a language she was finally beginning to understand. Amanda Cole made the most surprising discovery of all. As night fell and the temperature dropped rapidly, she realized she wasn't just enduring the cold. She was learning to use it. The colonist children had showed her how the temperature changes could be used to predict weather patterns, seismic activity, even the movement of predators. When the 24 hours ended at sunrise, the 4 team members stood where they had started, but they were no longer the same people. Their skin showed the golden tint of radiation adaptation that happened to humans after extended exposure to Kepler 442c's environment. Their reflexes were faster, their senses sharper, their understanding of survival completely transformed. Elder, Bishop, and the Council were waiting for them at the settlement's edge. "Congratulations," Bishop said simply. "You have survived your first day of real life." "First day?" Tony asked. "The learning never stops here," Council Member Santos explained. "Every day brings new challenges, new lessons, new opportunities to grow stronger." Dr. Hayes looked back at the landscape they had crossed. "I understand now," he said. "You're not just surviving on this planet, you're evolving with it." "Exactly," Bishop replied. "And we're not the only ones." He led them to a new building they hadn't seen before, one that housed the settlement's long-range communication center. Inside, massive screens showed star maps with dozens of highlighted systems. Kepler 442c isn't the only human settlement that chose evolution over safety, Bishop explained. There are others. Humans living in the crushing depths of water worlds. Humans who have learned to photosynthesize on ice planets. Humans who float in the atmospheres of gas giants. Beth Carter joined them, carrying datapads with information that would shock the galactic civilization. "We've been in contact with 47 extreme human settlements across the galaxy. Each one has chosen to adapt to impossible conditions, rather than make those conditions safe for normal humans." "Why?" Lisa Grant asked. "Why choose such difficult lives?" Danny Carter, who had been their guide since the beginning, answered, "Because difficult lives create extraordinary people. Because challenge creates growth. Because the universe is vast and dangerous, and someone needs to be strong enough to explore all of it." Elder Bishop activated the main screen, showing a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red dots marked normal human colonies, safe and comfortable on their Class 1 through 5 worlds. Blue dots marked the extreme settlements, scattered across the dangerous edges of known space. Your galactic civilization has chosen to stay in the safe areas, Bishop said. We've chosen to push the boundaries of what's possible. The question is, which approach will be better for humanity's future? Dr. Hayes stared at the map in amazement. There are so many of you, and we're growing stronger every generation. Beth added, while your safe world humans become more dependent on technology, we're becoming more capable as individuals. We can survive in conditions that would kill your strongest soldiers. We can adapt to environments your best scientists say are impossible for life. Amanda Cole realized the implications. You're not just another human colony. You're a new branch of human evolution. We prefer to think of ourselves as what humans were always meant to become, Bishop replied. Explorers, survivors, people who don't accept limitations. Captain Morrison's voice crackled through their communication system. Survey team, what's your status? You've been silent for over an hour. Dr. Hayes picked up the communicator. Captain, we're fine. Better than fine. We need to talk.